time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Hello and welcome. It's another week of the Nonprofits. Thank you so much for joining us this Sunday afternoon. Of course, we are your nonprofits, and this is a product of the atheist community of Austin. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and to promoting positive atheism. And I am joined here today, this afternoon, with a lovely panel. I will go ahead and introduce to my furthest side, Mateo. Welcome back. How are you?
Woohoo! Extremely happy. Can I say why, or shouldn't I?
Oh, please tell me why. And please tell us why you're wearing such a brilliantly bright, colorful shirt today.
Look at my beautiful shirt. It's going to be 1 year since I started Nuestra Experiencia Tea. Un año gente. 1 year, finally. I'm so excited about this. And I had to be here to tell you about that, guys. So thank you so much for inviting me. I'm extremely happy about that.
No, by all means, Mateo, thank you for doing that show. I know it's been truly essential for the Spanish speaking community, for you translating that particular show from the ACA material. So the dedication you do for that is so appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. You always make me happy when I'm here.
Oh, I'm glad. Cynthia McDonald, of course, the one and only, the GOAT, as you know, rumors have it. How are you?
Hey, Jenna, I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, very well. Not too bad. And of course, we welcome our special guest, not a stranger to the show. Obviously, you see her in the chat. She is one of our moderators, dedicated there week by week, moderating y'all. If you say something crazy, Cindy Plaza. So glad to have you finally on the show. How are you today?
I'm super happy to be here. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. And so I hope we're going to have a great show.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Now, a little bit about you, Cindy. Not only are you a moderator for our chats through these weekly shows, but you have a channel of your own called The Path to Reason. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I started this channel about a year ago, a little bit more. I talk mostly about critical thinking because that's my preferred area. So I talk about things about our daily lives, but seen through the lens of critical thinking. I also do interviews of different people, debates also, and everything like that. So
yes,
thanks.
Yes, of course. And two fascinating things about your channel. It's both in English and you translate some of your videos in French. So that I like. So even though I try to listen to some of them, I can't really learn as fast like that. But hey, we'll try. But you've had a lot of great guests on. You've had Anthony Magnabosco. You've had Mateo was actually on one of your episodes too. So we're definitely not all strangers.
No.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that you're here. I hope after this show, you will feel welcome to come back. Hopefully, fingers crossed, because we can never get enough of having enough hosts here, obviously, y'all know. So by all means, let's not delay any further. As per usual, links are available for this episode down in the description. So go ahead and pause the video if you need to. Dial back on the information that we relayed for you today, because we got a lot of interesting topics for you. So please come back to us once you review all that material. Don't take our word for us. By all means, look into the information for yourself. But let's go ahead and get started. Hot topic. This first segment that we had by none other than the lovely Nicki Minaj. And before I have Miss Cynthia dive on in, I want to read a little interesting tweet that Miss Nicki Minaj happened to post recently, which brings us to this very topic. So, my cousin in Trinidad won't get the vaccine because his friend got it and became impotent. His testicles became swollen. His friend was weeks away from getting married. Now the girl called off the wedding. So just pray on it. Oh, by all means, please pray on it. And make sure you're comfortable with your decision, not bullied. Hmm, a lot there. A lot there. Cynthia, thoughts?
Sure. Yeah. So this particular, so actually, like, before we like get into the whole thoughts of this, this actually, we're actually going to be discussing this tweet coming from this particular article that was posted in The Guardian, entitled Nicki Minaj claims that a COVID vaccine can cause impotence, dismissed by Trinidad and Tobago. And this particular article was written by Lauren Aratani. I believe I said her name, their name correctly. Okay, so basically, this article is speaking on how specifically the health minister dismissed of Trinidad and Tobago dismissed the claims by Nicki Minaj, the rapper, Darling Nicki, that her cousin's friend had become impotent after receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. And one of the things that he actually said is that as we stand now, there's absolutely no reported side effects or adverse event of testicular swelling in Trinidad, and none that we know of anywhere in the world. And I believe the minister's name is Terrence Dale Singh. And I said this in a on a recent press conference. So, and one of the things that he also mentioned, and I even seen like a report when he was interviewed by Trevor Noah by The Daily Show on Comedy Central, is that his office specifically looked for said cousin's friend um, about being having this particular effect, because one of the things that Trinidad does, as most countries do who administer the vaccine, is they keep a trace of everyone that they happen to inoculate. And they usually employ contact tracers so that they can follow up with people to see how that they're doing, if there's any adverse effects. And also, patients do have contact information for health providers just in case they do have adverse effects. And oftentimes, these reports are given directly to the World Health Organization, the health ministers of those said countries. I know that here in the United States, they're also reported to the CDC. So the CDC can look into these particular claims and also check to see if it's a thing or not, and then update the material accordingly if side effects happen to be something that is not necessarily reported at that particular time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, health surveillance. Very good.
Yeah. So I was kind of, and one of the things like she even said in one of her follow-up tweets is that she was doing her own, research or what have you about the
Sure.
vaccines. She even said that she skipped going to the Met Gala because the Met required that everyone attending had been inoculated. However, which is, I don't know, I know that there was some other people who kind of like, drew conclusions to like some of her other, previous health encounters with, not necessarily getting the vaccine, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to, shame her with that. But I will say that with her specifically, if you were doing research, and I'm kind of questioning what you denote as research, one of the things that you would have
Hmm.
seen is the side effects. And one of the side effects is definitely not testicular swelling, let alone impotence. and oftentimes, like, even and all of this information is like open source. I can even like the Mayo Clinic has a whole list of all the different possible side effects of the vaccine. Part of it is pain, redness and swelling where the shot was given, fever, fatigue, headache, muscle pain, some chills, joint pain, a bit like nausea or vomiting, or even swelling of the lymph nodes. And even like there are like some rare complications with young men when it came, I believe, like with the heart, but it's not
Mhm.
something that is as prevalent. And and there could even be like some sensations with, you know, difficulty walking, some facial movements, some double vision, things of that nature. But oftentimes, a lot of those things go away. So again, I'm just, you know, just curious, like what is this research, Nikki? Like, and I'm really concerned, especially like with a person who has such a huge following, actually just puts information out on
Mhm.
you know, without really, you know, corroborating this info. I mean, like it's, and then people end up doing things that you don't expect them to do, like have a whole, you know, march on the CDC.
Right. Of course. I mean, good old Google. Hello. That's always trusted. Just Google and click on that first link that's not a, you know, an edu or a org, or, you know, it's a .com and it's an article, and yeah, that's sufficient. That obviously not. But you know, you apart from her proclaiming and stating, sure, I'm sure she's doing her own research, but how effective is that research? And then to boast and also add to the fact that you have a platform as a celebrity and relaying potentially false information, which obviously we have done our investigation and it is false because there has been no documentation or claim of said cousin's friend of a friend of a friend of, you know, second generation, you know, boyfriend, that they've had the testicular swelling in Trinidad and Tobago. So, you know, it definitely says a lot about utilizing your platform to speak more truths, please. Any thoughts on this, Cindy, yourself?
I have mixed feelings about this because I think she's really convinced about this. I think, and from the other tweets I saw from her feed, I think she sees herself as some kind of a crusader, you know, trying to give a voice to those who are bullied because the government says this, and you can speak in a different way. Um, what bothers me is that first it's a basic case of mistaking correlation and causation. That's a
Right.
basic mistake people do,
Mm-hmm,
thinking that
precisely.
because two things follow, then they have to be linked to one another. That's a basic fallacy. But um, Cynthia said she doesn't want to shame her for other things, and I totally agree with that. But I want to note still the inconsistency of doing some injections of Botox and things like that, and not asking any question. And then when comes a vaccine that saves lives because people die of COVID, then now she needs to do some research. I think there's a bit of an inconsistency here.
Hmm,
Only a bit.
a little bit.
Sorry, guys. When I was here last time, we were talking about other anti-vaxxers, and I think I mentioned how awful I feel about famous people who spread misinformation and lies about the vaccine because their research is basically watching a short video on YouTube and they get the information from there. I think it's great from you that you don't want to shame her for the things that she has done. I'm totally ignorant about famous people, so I have no idea what that might be, and I think it's better that I don't. And but for me, I mentioned last time, people who do this, they profit. Usually, they profit from killing people. I don't think
Mm,
that she's actually profiting from them, but she believes people like, you know, the infamous disinformation dozen, those guys that I mentioned that time. She believes that, and yeah, she gets convinced of all this silly stuff. I don't know how many people actually could follow her advice because, as I said, I have no idea about famous people. But if there are people who are going to follow what she says, she's dangerous. I did have fun with. Oh, sorry.
No,
I did
continue
have
your
fun.
point.
Yeah, I was going to say that I did have fun with all the memes that there were out there about. Yeah, this is the cousin, and I'm sure you have seen the images.
Oh yeah.
And
Certainly.
and
Yeah, I shared one.
yeah, yeah, I saw that.
How dare you?
Yeah,
It was
my
funny.
favorite one.
I'm sorry. I'm
And
sorry.
well, in the end, I don't really know.
My favorite one was the one with Aladdin. I don't know if you saw this one.
Yeah, that is the one that Cynthia shared, the one with Aladdin. I saw it.
By all means, if anyone in the chat knows what this meme is, share it in the chat. So
Of course, we love links.
I will.
what I was gonna say is, I mean, I'll grant some fairness and not necessarily label Nicki as anti-vax, even though we've had discussed on the show and at various times of actual anti-vaxxers having the platform that they have and proclaiming the illness of or the ill misinformation, I should say, of the COVID vaccine. But even still, with I it's kind of like we've been through this for more than a year, close to 2 years. I don't know how long it's been, to be honest. It's just everything has
like
bled
20.
over.
Feels like 25.
Yeah, I know. It's
You
been
don't
like
have-
25 years now. And how much more information do you need to look up? How much more information, research do you need to be advised of? I mean, if you're getting your research and information off of means of Facebook and Twitter, then you need to look somewhere else. But, the information that we've had developed, and we keep having research and studies and cohorts of multiple sample sizes and looking into this in the US and abroad, how much more does Nicki Minaj and anyone else need to look up and make a sound decision that we need to, hamper on this? We need to nip this in the bud, as my mom would say, and just go ahead and get the vaccine so we can potentially be at least herd immunized, even though I do foresee this something that is going to exist with us for a while, but we can control the increases of hospitalizations. We can control the instances of infections by doing what we're supposed to do. If not, then cover your freaking face. Something. Do something.
Yeah. I mean, like, this again, like, a lot of these people just like have large platforms. I mean, like I mentioned it briefly, but not too long after, she tweeted all this other stuff, there was a group of people that did organize a whole protest on the CDC. Like, they got news attention. They, they were shouting at folk. One of the organizers said that, we have to question the vaccine because their, I believe that they said their aunt developed a mass or a lump in their breast once after they got the vaccine. And I'm like, no, again, that is not a side effect of the particular vaccine.
That lump's been there, trust me.
Yeah, that lump has been there more than likely, and it's and I'm pretty sure it's not related to the vaccine. No. So, and I mean, like, but the thing, and I even had like a whole discourse with another person concerning, this very thing. It was another friend of mine that shared one of a hilarious meme. It was hilarious, and I'm sorry, it was funny. But but it did prompt an entire conversation about, how does vaccines work? How have pandemics been dealt with in the past? And to the point where we don't necessarily have to be concerned with certain infections any longer, like polio and smallpox. I mean, like, all of those particular infections that affected people all around the world that were absolutely terrible were stopped by vaccines. And the person told me that you act like that vaccines are a cure. I said, no, I've never said that, but they are preventative measures. And, they also told me that they worked in healthcare. And I'm like, are you sure? Because if you work in healthcare, you should know how a vaccine works.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important. And Cynthia, we've had this discussion just recently, and just identifying the difference between a person that holds a particular status doesn't necessarily mean they are a practicing medical professional.
Right.
So it could, it's you hear various state hearings trying to demand non-mandates of vaccines and face masks and things like that, and they have a PhD level or some type of look-alike medical suffix at the end of their name, but you can be a PhD in damn near anything. Hell, a freaking pastor can have a PhD. I know because I've had a pastor that has a PhD for I don't know what fucking reason. But that does not. I believe I can say that word. I'm sorry.
No, you good. We more than 2 minutes
past.
and 1
Good.
second in, so we good.
I'm not fired yet, but that does not mean just because you hold some type of higher level education title does not give you the right to know of medical information if you're not a practicing clinician. And I'm curious, Cindy, for yourself, just speaking personally, what type of good research or evidence that has been shown to you, whether you favor being vaccinated or tested or not, I'm not predetermining anything. What good evidence for you deems good evidence, I guess you could say?
That's an interesting question because that's what I was going to talk about just after that. It's this idea that I'm doing my own research. That propagates the idea that anyone, like average Joe, can go to Google and find more precise and more relevant information than scientists can find in decades of study. So I look at, even though I'm not American, I look at the CDC's data. I look at, in Europe, we have also instances like that. We have the UN also who provides data. And then we look at the data and then use common sense. If a virus is airborne, then we protect our airways. It's pretty simple, really. I mean, I've heard the argument that we have around 60,000 people who die of cancer every year. Why don't we block the economy for them? Well, cancer is not airborne.
Right.
You can pass a cancer to someone else. So that's the reason. And it's so frustrating to see those kind of reasonings that are rooted in so much ignorance, because understanding how a disease works, how the body works, there should be a basic level of understanding. And we see that this basic level isn't reached in so many cases.
Education has failed and has failed so hard. And I think that my biggest problem with famous people when they start talking about this is because, as you said, they have a lot of people listening to them, and they are going to create this mentality of why would this famous person lie, right? What do they gain by lying? And yeah, in the case of Nicki Minaj, I don't think that she's selling kind of a magic cure like some other quotation mark doctors who talk against vaccines. But yeah, why would she lie? Only because she believed those lies, and now she's just spreading them. And that's dangerous. That's going to cost some lives. That's going to be awful.
Yeah. I mean, sensationalism. I mean, that could be a reason for any celebrity, really. I mean, personally, I prefer Cardi B. So, I mean, there you go. But I'm sorry, Cynthia, you were going to say something.
Oh, she also mentioned that she was invited to the White House, but they took it. But they said that they never invited her.
So that's
Yeah.
okay.
What they said was that that they were willing to have, like, I guess, like a person from the White House or from Biden's administration speak with her. However, she ended up going onto her podcast and then saying, oh, first they said that that I could come, and now that they're taking it back and said that's not what they said. And guys, why would I lie about that?
Nicki got a
lie about?
podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, see,
Yeah.
sensationalism. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. She got a, she be saying stuff on the
Hmm.
interwebs,
Her
but
Now that
her
makes
viewership
sense.
went up for sure.
Sure. And and then she's like, oh no, she actually took to her Instagram and was talking to the people and said, why would I lie about that, guys? I mean, like all of these things are coming up, and we need to talk to them and talk about them, and this is in some ways, I'm not saying this, but it's kind of like being silenced. I'm like,
Those people.
OMG. You know what? Okay, fine, Nikki. Let's talk about this. Let's point out the little details of your tweet and stating that your cousin's friend, second removed from his boyfriend's girlfriend, apparently had testicular swelling due to receiving the COVID vaccine. So I did my, good in part research and pulled up some information in regards to both men and women regarding their reproductive organs. So let's go through that, shall we? So, to expand on, whatever testimony she states from, her friend, cousin's friend having these testicular swelling, with in similar fashion to the evidence I'm going to present with in regards to women, the COVID vaccine itself does not present harm for inappropriate penis dysfunctioning. And yes, that is the medical terminology. But the COVID virus does. I repeat, the COVID virus, not the vaccine. Most recent study published in Andrology Journal in July of this year stated, and I quote, we reviewed data from the Sex at COVID online survey. So this data was pulled from a sample pool of men in Italy between April of May of last year to retrieve a sample of these Italian men and how they have been doing or have been sexually active, but also have reported being contracted the COVID-19 virus. And so that report showed or found the evidence strongly suggests that ED, also known as erectile dysfunction, and the COVID-19 virus are strongly associated. So, with the actual and potential infection of the COVID-19 virus, you could have issues with erectile dysfunction, gentlemen. Also, with women, because this is something that I often hear because I work with a lot of women myself in my practice as a nurse in my office. So this is more pointed to pregnant women. OB/GYNs across the board of almost over 50 medical associations state without a shadow of a doubt that the COVID vaccine, quote, has no interaction with a woman's reproductive organs or has any interaction with an egg that has been released or fertilized. And I'm going to provide, these are evidence-based empirical articles, so don't bite me, folks. This will be in the description. So these are empirical articles and journals specifically. They will be available. Look at it for yourself. So, however, per a recent CDC release August of this year, pregnant and recently pregnant women are at higher risk for severe illness from COVID-19 than non-pregnant women, COVID-19 virus. Additionally, pregnant women with COVID-19 are at higher risk for preterm birth and might have a higher risk for other adverse pregnancy outcomes. So again, if you're not getting yourself vaccinated, you can have issues with your reproductive cycle. So ladies, gentlemen, take care of your baby ovens. Take care of your wee-wees, folks. Get the shot.
Well,
That's
if
it.
I fail,
That's
I
my
can
TED
say,
Talk.
hey, I got COVID. You never know when it's going to hit you. So
You never know. You never
yeah,
know.
Well,
something funny that.
okay. Oh no, go ahead, Mateo. Go
And
for
I
it.
just want to say something funny that I read on the memes, several memes that I found of this story, swollen story. It was about what I decided. I wrote in the end. What would have what happened in here? Is this person evil enough that she's going to deceive people only to get more famous, or did she actually heard the story of somebody with this situation and it was just an STD and the guy said no, it was COVID and she believed it? Was she
Mm.
gullible or was she just evil? Up to you to decide,
Well,
people.
yeah. Well, in her words, stupid people is my enemy. Stupid people is so whack. Stupid people should have befriended me because they could have probably came back.
Golf clap. Golf clap. Thank you. I can't snap my fingers. It sounded like spoken word, but golf clap. I think the overall point, and I know we pretty much fundamentally agree, and I'm sure the audience does too, is that, utilizing your platform, as we each of us have our own particular channels, and which we have various talks, interviews, what have you. Establishing yourself and presenting yourself in the correct way, and utilizing your platform for good, and speaking the most truth, and having that evidence to back that is essential and important. And I think if we strive to do more of that, then we can get some type of handling on this pandemic that we're still going through. Hospitalizations and everything is real and increasing, and it's devastating. And we certainly need to tackle it the best way that we can. And I just hope, Nicki, you got your subscription up, you got your views, you said what you said. Okay, now it's time to shut up, please, and let the real people do the work so we can get past this madness. Any final thoughts?
I don't know how she can get out of this on top. I mean, if she starts saying that people should be vaccinated, she'll be destroyed by her fans, who will say that she's just changing her mind. But if she keeps going on like this, it will be worse. But if she says nothing, she probably will be harassed for getting comments. So I don't know.
And the question is she really unvaccinated? Did she get it? Because do you remember that influencer that I told you last time about, who was totally against vaccines and she died because of COVID? Is that what is going to happen with her if she continues with this harmful behavior? That could be awful.
Well, she didn't go to the Met Gala, and I'm assuming you need to show evidence of actually being fully vaccinated. So that's a hint.
That is correct.
Yep.
Yeah. And my final notes is I ain't hit that note.
You've yet to hit that note.
I ain't hit, and I ain't hit that note.
Well said. Well, is that a lyric too?
It is.
Okay. I don't know. I'm very bad at most rap music lyrics. Like I said, I'm a Cardi B fan. Hi, Cardi B. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about our next very interesting segment here out of Spain. So there has been an interesting development out of the Spanish Roman Catholic Church. Well, let me preface this by saying this is a very, very interesting love story to tell all the world. And so there is was a Spanish bishop, named Xavier Novel. Used to be known as being ultra conservative and pro conversion therapy and pro exorcisms, which is still a thing. I don't know why, but anyway, he recently resigned last month from the Roman Catholic Church due to an emerged media story about him falling in love with a woman, a divorcee by the name of Silvia Caballo. She is a psychologist and an erotic novelist who writes novels based on, quote, satanic. I was going to say Santana. I don't know why.
Satanic.
Yeah. Satanic tinged erotic fiction. Saucy. So he felt, and of course, this kind of builds into a conversation about, priests not being able to marry and things like that. But he felt his love was so strong and he was so enticed and enraptured by her Satanist scriptures and novels and tempting and temptress and Jezebel, because women are just sinful and they just capture men into their sinful ways, that he had to leave the church. And now he works doing something else. I don't know what, but I mean, he's not in the church anymore.
No, he's not in the church anymore.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But Cynthia, you had some interesting notes here, and this is a great in-depth conversation about the start of how, the no celibacy, no marriage for priests. Like, please educate us, girl.
Yeah, so I was really interested in this whole because I've heard that celibacy or even like priest in the Catholic Church was not always a thing. Like, I believe that this is something that happened later on. So I pulled up a little bit information concerning this. So, um, now, so the earliest reference to celibacy comes from 305 AD at the Spanish Council of Elvira, not to be conflated with Elvira, the undead. A local assembly of clergymen who met to discuss matters pertaining to the church. Canon 33 forbids clerics in the church, bishops, priests, and deacons from having sexual relations with their wives and from having children, though not from entering into marriage. And it was not until the ecumenical meetings of the Catholic Church at the first and second Lateran councils in 1123 and 1139 that priests were explicitly forbidden from marrying. Eliminating the prospect of marriage had the added benefit of ensuring that children or wives or of priests did not make claims on property acquired throughout the priest's life, which thus could be retained by the church. It took centuries for the practice of celibacy to become widespread, but it eventually became the norm of the Western Catholic Church. And
Wow.
I thought that it was kind of interesting that even though, like, I believe the the scripture that is often utilized is when Paul was talking about marriage. I believe this is in I want to say First Corinthians. I want to say it's First Corinthians 7, and he was talking specifically about marriage and the duties of a husband to a wife, and to a wife or to a husband. And one of the things that he said as he was going through this whole relationship between a husband and a wife is that I wish you were like me, if you cannot be me. And what he was saying is that Paul historically was said to not have married, and when he took up the mantle of being an additional apostle to Christ, that he chose to stay unmarried and to stay celibate. So when he was talking to the Corinthian church, he was saying, "I wish you were like me." In other words, like, if you want to do this whole Christian thing, you know, keep your stuff to yourself. However, it is better to marry than to burn. And but as we all have just heard, that was not always the case, as far as, like, when the church was organized, that priests could not necessarily marry or even have sex. But I think it's interesting that this uh idea of celibacy and not marrying was not necessarily because they wanted to be so scriptural.
Hmm. So technically it's in scripture, but not. It's so basically it's because Paul said it. They're doing it now or
but
been doing it.
that's the thing, because even Paul said, he clarified himself in that scripture that says, this is me, not necessarily a commandment of Christ. These are
Hmm.
my thoughts. These are, this is kind of like how I roll. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is my necessarily my worldview, not necessarily something that was communicated to me from the Jesus up top, right? That this is that. So that's interesting, because, like, now we're just taking this particular scripture, and then but it was more so to be used as a way to say, to kind of keep priests from having a lineage, so that their children do, or and wives do not inherit a property just in case that they die. That can go back to the church. So, like, whatever they acquired, even like I even remember watching the Borgias, and that's one of the things that the Pope was doing oftentimes to the cardinals. If he didn't particularly care for them, he would say, like, you can forfeit all of your all of your worldly possessions to the Mother Holy Church. In other words, we taking all your shit and we're going to go ahead and wrap it up into our stuff. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So
I mean,
yeah.
it just seems like a long-winded excuse to say, I didn't get none, I can't get none, so y'all can't get none either. Fair? No. um, yeah, that is a very interesting history behind it. So it's not even God breathed as the Bible is intended to be. It's Paul breathed from Corinthians 1.
Right.
First Corinthians,
First
1.
Corinthians 7.
My
yeah.
bad.
And-
Yeah,
and
that's how you
it's-
say it, right, Trump? Okay. By all means, Cindy, your thoughts.
Yeah, it's even worse than that because this chapter of the Bible is indeed 1 Corinthians 7, verse 32 and following. It says that so it says, I want to be free from anxieties. The unmarried man is anxious about the things of the Lord, how to please the Lord, but the married man is anxious about worldly things, so how to please his wife. And his interests are divided. So that's general about men and women again in general, but there's a chapter that talks specifically about priests, and it's in Timothy. It's 1 Timothy 30. Let me find this. No, 1 Timothy chapter 3. It says, "This is a true saying: if a man desires the office of a bishop, let him be careful to his wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, up to teach, and blah 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 blah. For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God?" So that explicitly talks about priests and that they should be married, because if they can take care of their own house, how can they take care of the house of God, the church? So it's again a very very broad example of selective reading, where the the instances decide what they want to apply, and then choose in the text what applies to what they already want, because the Bible is very clear. The priests should be able to marry. Even they should be married. No question about that. So yeah,
Yeah,
It's just
interesting.
but
Go for it.
but yeah, just one one thing I wanted to add. It's that it sounds almost when you read the article that this priest lost a bet because he picked a woman who is the exact opposite of everything the Catholic Church stands for. She's divorced. She's a psychologist. She's a writer. She's even a erotic writer, satanist. I mean, how bad, how worse can she be? I mean, the only thing that would be worse was if she had horns and a ponytail. You mean it's quite funny that she's the embodiment of everything that's wrong according to the Catholic Church,
Right.
and
That's a
that's
good point.
Well, Cindy,
worse.
she Bishop Xavier is not the first uh godly man to fall prey to a lovely face and a tiny waist. Not the
Mm.
first. Let's insert David and Bathsheba, insert Samson and Delilah, insert Ahab and Jezebel, insert Solomon and every woman in Palestine.
Mm. Hmm.
Y'all know he had lots of women's.
This is
yeah.
well, Mateo. Don't listen to these Jezebels. What say you?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that Cindy, you mispronounce better. How can she be better than she even is? And you know what? This guy, he was awful and all of that, but I'm pretty sure that, like most priests, he was just in the closet. I mean, guys, have you heard about No Not November? If you have heard the stories of that, you do know that men have those sexual needs, those strong desires, And that would explain why the Pope has to keep covering priests abusing nuns, priests abusing children, and I do mean raping people. And it's because these guys are forced to spend their whole life without doing one of the most normal and natural things ever. And I'm pretty sure that this guy has been in the closet all this time. He had been because now he's out. And I guess I can say good for him. I wish every single person stop trying to go for children and they actually could find a woman or man or whatever, anyone that makes them happy. And please, priests, guys, live your sexuality. Stop torturing yourself. It's useless, and as we know, it's only because the church wants to keep all the money for themselves and not give it to people. Why don't they just create special rules for priests? Okay, get married, have children, but nothing goes for them. I don't know, that could be at least okay. The church is going to pay the education of your children, and that's it. Do that, people, but let those guys be happy and stop your raping a whole pandemic inside the church. Let's keep talking about pandemics.
Yeah, the church's own pandemic. And remind me again, what was that? What you referenced, Mateo, in November? Was November what exactly?
No, not November. When you spend the whole month of November avoiding masturbation, there are several stories about that on the internet. You didn't know about that?
Oh, no nut November?
Yeah, if you want to have fun and know what happened with men when they spend too much time without masturbating, search for that. There are interesting stories and sad stories. Very sad.
Well, I wonder if they...
go for it. I was going to say this sounds like an interesting topic on secular sexuality that appears on Thursdays on the ACA. Thank you.
Very well done. Thank you.
And don't research what comes after No Nut November. Nobody wants to leave that December.
But I wonder if they kind of pushed that up a few months because he quit last month in August. So I'm just saying maybe well, it's been a long time. It's been a long time for that no nut.
He couldn't wait no more. Jenna, like he got reading them books with the satanic panic of the pointed horns. It was like, whoop! Come on, girl. Let's do this.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on before we get too frisky in here. It's funny. I'm glad that, per Mateo's words, he's out of the closet. He's found love. I think they're almost married or happily married, and they're living somewhere else away from that Spanish Roman Catholic community. And so I think the deeper point of this article drives up the twofold of present issues. One, that it was Paul breathed about this whole type of no marriage, no sex, blah, blah, blah. And two, like Mateo was saying, the raping and, of children, young children, because of, not being able to nut. So I think this drives an issue to where this is not something that's within the Bible, or God breathed, I should say. It's in the Bible, but Paul said it. And are we really just going to listen to Paul just because he didn't get none? Come on, moving on. But
we talked a lot about nuts tonight.
It's a lot about nuts.
It's not even Thursday, y'all. Damn.
Per this recording, it almost is, but with y'all on Sunday, you gotta wait a little bit. But by all means, I wanted to address a few announcements here because of everyone, all of our dedicated viewers, spreading the good news of our faithless nonprofits. We are almost to 10K. We almost there, y'all. We almost there. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? No, we're not there yet, but we're almost there. So by all means, so close, but please continue to spread the word. We could be there next week. I'm not gonna prophesize, but we could be. And if my prophecy comes true, then someone owes me some money. But we could be, just because of your help from spreading what we do good here at the nonprofit. So please keep sharing our links to the show, subscribing and notifying yourself so you can share it to your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, anyone and everyone that hates you. just write this down or pass them an email to this link. They'll love you in the end, trust me. But by all means, continue to set your notification bell to on so you're always updated when our show premieres in between Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience every Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. Central. So you will stay tuned right here with us. And of course, if you're not already aware, which you should be, because we say this every week, the Atheist Community of Austin has another YouTube channel. Check out the Atheist Experience Network, AEN, one-stop shop for all ACA shows and a podcast in one channel. So subscribe to tiny.cc/AEN podcast. Listen to all great episodes of the Nonprofits and Secular Sexuality and the Atheist Experience and all of our other ACA shows so that you don't miss a single episode, because you don't want to, because we always talk about things and it's fun. But if you happen to be missing episodes, especially last week, here's something you missed.
And he goes on to say things like they're having drag queens come in and read to children.
Man, I wish that drag queens were getting invited to read to kids in schools.
There was one guy that said a female Bigfoot drug him up from the creek and had intercourse with him. And of course, my question is, how was it?
Please, this isn't Thursday.
Dave Chappelle did a bit talking about how after 9/11, he turned on the news and there was a reporter that was like, we're going to go right now to talk to Ja Rule about his thoughts on this tragedy. And Chappelle's like, no one gives a what Ja Rule thinks at a time like this.
This tin of beans is the almighty deity, and we need to worship this tin of beans because it will bring us prosperity and it will make us all fertile.
I do not care what your religion is. I do not care if you believe in a God. I do not care if you like green eggs and ham.
That little head of Seth Andrews on a can of beans is too good. I love me some Seth Andrews.
You know, his voice is just so soothing. You know, why would you not worship a tin of beans that has Seth Andrews' head on it?
Can we please just make that? Can we make that like a nonprofits like item? Just a tin of beans with Seth Andrews' head. Mm-hmm. That's it, and say nonprofits on it. Nonprofit. Yeah. No real context there. That's just something we sell. I'm not saying we do. Okay, moving on. All right, this, if you happen to not know, is since the start of September 15th through October 15th for Americans. It is Hispanic Heritage Month. So this is to celebrate the Hispanic heritage of their contributions to our country. And of course, there are other countries outside of the US that do have their own dates that celebrate this type of recognition and showing that recognition to them, condoning them for the contributions to their own countries and societies. But Mateo, your notes were just so awesome and so anecdotal to how you felt as far as certain stigmas and language regarding Latine, or if I'm pronouncing that right, you can correct me later because I'm developing a new lexicon. So please educate us.
Oh, thank you. And I totally did not beg to be the one presenting this because this is awesome. First of all, guys, thank you so much for adding this topic. I think this is something amazing that we have to talk about. But before I go with my own opinion, I have to remind you all, countries that are between the USA and Antarctica, all those countries are not always friendly towards each other and they are not very united. That's why whenever people want to say, hey, we're a huge nation, a lot of people laugh. I'm totally sure that doesn't happen in the USA. Over that specific place, it does happen. That's why Nuestra Experiencia Tea doesn't have a specific nationality, because it's an international community where everybody can talk about without talking about countries. We avoid that. Why am I saying this? Because what I am about to say might be controversial. Some people may totally disagree with me, and I want to make clear that I'm not representing the whole people who live in those places. I'm just going to talk about how I feel about this. And let's start with this. Hispanic Heritage Month. This was an article about NPR. I had to check that is the National Public Radio over there. And they were saying that we are going to keep using the Hispanic label, and I know that this is going to make some of you cry. I think that's something about the make lips cry or something like that, make liberal people cry, whatever. They did have some controversial stuff in what they said, but at the same time, I felt that they were addressing some important points. And I'm going to start right away. I'm sure that you can see right in front of me here, I have this interesting thing. Look, if the first thing I have is Latin, and at the end I have this at. In Spanish, this symbol is called arroba, if you want to know. This was tried like in the 2000s, 2010. People tried to use that to get to a more inclusive way of saying Latino. Nowadays, I've seen some people saying Latine because in Spanish, a lot of people are sorry, my English. A lot of people are trying to use more inclusive language, and the E is ideal because I'm pretty sure that you know that in English, in Spanish, we have genders for stuff. So for people, we can say everybody. If I have only women, I'm going to say todas. If I have only men, I'm going to say todos. But if I'm men and women, I'm going to say todos as well. That was, unfair. So now people are saying todes with the letter E at the end. And that's why I've seen Latine written a lot. And I thought, okay, I may not totally agree with this, even though now I do a little bit more because reasons, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the last one, Latinx. I've seen this so many times, and when I see it, it makes me angry because this, I feel, is one of those times when people say, "Hey, you Latinos, you should you should be offended about people calling you Latinos, and we are going to give you a new special term. We are going to impose this on you because you cannot get something on your own." I'm sorry, that for me is insulting. I feel almost personally attacked because no. If you want to be more inclusive and if you want to know how people, or you want to be more inclusive with people, check how they call themselves. I was saying before that Latin is already inclusive, and right now, before continuing with my opinion, something that they said in the Hispanic Heritage Month article, that please guys check it on the description. They said that some people consider Hispanic a little bit offensive because it's about people who speak Spanish, and that includes people from Spain. And I have to agree with that. My program, I say that is for Hispanic people because I wanted to reach Spain, but people living between the USA and Antarctica, you can call them Latin American people. And with Latin American, you have a perfectly inclusive term that is not going to be about gender and that is going to include everybody. And yes, we're talking about languages that come from Latin, but you're not including, for example, French, sorry, Cindy, and Italian that also come from Latin, but they are in Europe. No, Latin American would be people who speak English and Portuguese in Latin America. Yeah, but that's in the other Americas. I think in Guyana, French Guyana, they speak French, so I may have to retract that later. So my point is, people, maybe you want to try, you're trying to do things right, but please don't force people to do what you think is right. This is Speedy Gonzalez all over again. If you don't know, some years ago, people decided that Speedy Gonzalez was very offensive towards Mexicans because it could show offensive stereotypes of Mexican people, and Mexicans loved Speedy Gonzalez. I'm sorry, I'm going to use a slur in here. Forgive me, people. They loved him because the Mexican mouse was also defeating the gringo cat. Yeah, I know it's a slur. Sorry. And I still remember the Vive le Mouse. I love that shout. And you know what? I'm going to continue with the slur because that is a word that I have used since my childhood to refer to people who speak English. And I didn't know it was a slur until I got banned on Facebook like last year for using it. And I had no idea what I did wrong. Now I know, oh, people don't like when they are called something that they don't approve. Guess what happens with Latinx? A word that ends in X. No words ends in NX in Spanish. So please don't do it. It's so unnatural, sounds so wrong. That's why, and once again, I may be wrong because I've heard that apparently this was started by some some people who are Latin people living in the USA, but people, the same companies that want to impose this Latinx, I don't want to even pronounce it. They want to impose that. They have been making studies. Please check the description, because less than a quarter of people have heard this term and less than 3% of people are using it. And even if that 3% are Latin American people who want to use the term, I feel that a 3% choosing how to call everybody else in the USA and everybody else outside the USA is totally not fair at all. And that has been the rant. Thank you for listening to me. And sorry, I had so much to say about this very small specific thing.
No, by all means, Mateo. I'm. It almost seemed coincidence to me. Just choosing this and building to this show, because I like to try and broaden our scope outside of the U.S. and recognize certain holidays or heritages. And of course, yes, this particular one is based in the US, but I did preface and say there are other countries that have their own type of holiday just like this. So by all means, the education from your point of view and from your community and from your family and friends that you speak with that share the similar, I guess you could say, idea and everything regarding you using the term Latinx versus Latin. Thank you for that. Is a privilege for us to know, and I like to sit back and learn, and be engrossed in that new learning, so I can change my language too. I won't say anything as far as me personally trying to create an argument, but I will say it is something referenced in the article that, yes, you were correct. There was an individual within the US that developed this term. And for me, I think I only just recently heard it within the last year, the reference of the utilization of Latinx. Or I think for us, or for me, I will just preface myself, Latinx is the terminology that I've heard. And I think that was based off a TV show. I'm not quite sure. I just know suddenly Latinx was a thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because, remembering my schooling for learning Spanish for like 4 years straight, and I still don't know Spanish well anymore. They did a lot of focus on the pronouns, and if it's she, her, you do the A. If it's he, him, you do the O. And now trying to build that inclusivity for all gender-specific people, that definitely does need to be written out. And I think Latin is very appropriate. And of course, some may or may not agree as far as wanting to reference or utilizing Latinx, but there definitely is a strong, your idea of it is definitely a sound, and I don't disagree with you at all. So thank you for bringing that into the fold. But it's definitely something to say as far as the build about this, the Hispanic and Latin culture, because there's little references in our media for it, at least positively. And that needs to build and be more affirmed in not within the US itself, but other cultures as well. So, Cynthia, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad we kind of brought this up because, like, I grew up very close to, just for reference, because we're talking about Hispanic heritage much, I'm just going to utilize the term Hispanic. But I grew up in next to a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, specifically Mexican. Even though that a lot of, you had also some folk that was also from the Caribbean, Native Black Americans, and also, even like as time went on, we even had like some people from the continent of Africa start to trickle into the neighborhood as well. And so I had a lot of friends that I went to high school with that were Mexican, and I remember having this conversation specifically about using the term Hispanic, and a lot of them did not like it. And one, it was because it wasn't very specific. It only really meant that, you're from an ethnicity, not a race, because Hispanic is not considered a race. That is that binds you to speaking Spanish. But if I had like some of my friends who were born here and may have been and have a family that has been here for a few generations, some of them were not, bilingual. Some of them just spoke just English. And so when they looked at themselves, even though that they knew that they were from the lineage of Mexican nationality, it wasn't necessarily, they felt that that was something that was kind of erased from them because they're just lumped into this one category. And as you know, we mentioned, you mentioned kind of earlier, Mateo, like Latin America in of itself is a bunch of different countries with a bunch of different cultures, and those cultures are very distinctive, and how they have even, like, developed over time. And it's kind of like how I think that we had like a backstage conversation when I was saying that I don't particularly care for the term people of color, only because like it kind of lumps everybody into this one pot of
Yes.
a minority or non-white. But everyone has, like, that's lumped into this particular pot, have very distinctive backgrounds and families and cultures and language and all the different things that create a community. And even like growing up in this particular way, having some of my friends who were from Mexican descent, even like hanging out with like my parents' friends, who a lot of them were Cuban, because as you all know, my mom's Jamaican, so and we like right next to Cuba, so we had a lot of people in that area too. Like they have very distinctive cultures, and as much as I really believe in celebrating those things, is it proper just to lump everybody into one thing? I my own personal issue with any of this is I don't particularly care for anybody's culture to be erased just so that we can make it convenient for anyone else. And I kind of
Amen.
feel, yeah, and I kind of feel that this is, the what happens oftentimes, like when we're trying to, name ethnicities and name different people, so that we can just like, okay, well, all you all are over this are this, so we're just gonna go with that. And I'm like, but what do the people say? How do they identify themselves? As I'm with you, Mateo, it should be what you want to be called, not somebody else because it's convenient for them.
Right. Cindy, if you have any thoughts on this too.
Yeah. Regarding to what Cynthia was just saying, I think we need both. We need a global label and one that fits only each group of people, because there are things that all person of color face. And so if you want to talk about these problems that they all face, then we need to we should be able to use a word that encompasses all those people. But then that doesn't mean that we are trying to erase their differences. Uh, and I'm not saying that some people don't do that. Of course, it happens, but um, I tend to have this more nuanced way of seeing this, that we use the words we need to describe what we're talking about. And if we are talking about all persons of color, like when we talk about police violence, they don't care about whether you what your heritage is or what your culture is. They only judge you with the color of your skin. So this is something that all person of color faces. So yeah, that's just the way I think this specific problem. I don't know what do you think?
Yeah, and I'll say this quickly, and I'm gonna give Mateo the final word here. As far as I think there, to Cynthia's point, in response to that, it's a matter of laziness, just trying to encompass everyone and just simplify everyone into this group when we're not just this one group. And I agree, it definitely can be difficult to address someone appropriately. But just as how we acclimate ourselves to asking an individual their pronouns, outright instead of assuming who they are. I think making that extra effort as well should be applied to races. And, I say, I've had people ask me, and I don't think they're disingenuous when they ask, are you okay with me calling you a Black person? Are you okay with African American? I'm like, yeah, say Black. I'm Black. Say Black. That's fine. It's okay to call me Black, because that's what I am. I'm a Black person. I am African American. I'm not a colored person, because that terminology has its tinge in our history. For obvious, if y'all know history, y'all know. So it's just as similar as referencing what Mateo was saying. Asking and knowing the appropriate way to address someone is key. And I think if we strive as a people to do that better, then we can educate ourselves more and be better people for it. So Mateo, final words on this.
Oh yeah, if anybody wants to know what was the first thing that I asked Cynthia and Jena the first time I was with them, was that question. How could I call you, because I didn't want to be offensive? And
that's
people,
right, you did.
Yeah, and if you know Latin American people, do the same. But once again, I want to say this: I don't represent everybody speaking Spanish. I do have a show in Spanish where I want everybody watching me. But if any Latin American person disagrees with me, please send me an email. Talk to me. Write it on the comments. I will be reading, because of course I was here. I'm going to be reading. And I want to finish this with oh, what? I was going to say it in French, like vive le mouse. No, viva el mouse, viva el ratón.
I like it. Well, thank you, Mateo. Yes, thank you for that education for us, Mateo. And I hope everyone in the audience learned something for themselves as well. And it certainly should be talked about more. But we are just wrapping up here into our final segment. This is our Strange But True.
Strange But True.
So I have Cindy leading off on this article for us, but I want to show the audience here a tweet just to preface this conversation from RuPaul. So Miss RuPaul, she recently was given a lovely new status. So her tweet was, rainbow colors and legs for days. Australian fly species named after me, RuPaul. Cindy, give us a little explanation behind this tweet from Miss RuPaul.
So just let me pull the article. It's a very interesting story, because it's so an Australian scientist named an insect, but fly species after RuPaul. So that's the interesting story, because sometimes scientists want to people to speak about their work, and they want.
I'll finish up here.
Issues they just discovered with the name of a celebrity, and that's what happens here. This fly that has very, very bright colors was named after RuPaul, and the purpose of the scientists naming this after this artist was to allow people to link science and LGBTQ people, because we tend to see science as a very elitist subject. And this scientist who was gay closeted for a very long time and is no longer at the moment, he wanted people to feel comfortable being gay or lesbian or anything else, and still be able to go to science. And the best way he found to have people talk about this was to name a very bright colored fly after RuPaul.
Nice. And it's brilliant. I can't tell if whether I probably should know this, but I can't tell whether if RuPaul had wore that on her show, because she has that show, Drag Races, if she had wore that dress first and then the scientist pinpointed that fly, like, oh, that looked like it, or if the fly came first and then RuPaul. But I digress. But there's some interesting factoids. Apart, in addition to what you were just saying, Cindy, the scientist is recognized as gay, and so, but this particular scientist, he has a history of naming almost over a dozen species of fly species in Australia. Cynthia, I know you have a notable one for yourself.
Yeah, he actually also named the I think it's the oh my goodness, Scaptia.
I know.
Child, I'm so.
This is why we need Bree. Bree, brain
Bree,
bug, aka
right.
Bree girl. We need you to
We
pronounce
need-
these names.
Seriously,
if you're listening.
Because your girl is struggling. I deal with HIV. Anyway, the Scaptia is, I think it's the Plinthina. Plinthina. Yes.
Sound it out. Mm-hmm.
Yes, right. Hooked on phonics work for me. It's actually a horsefly that was named after Beyonce. So it's called the Beyonce fly. Even though I like this particular fly, I believe it's a portion of a soldier fly made. It's very colorful, very rainbowy. It's extremely pretty. I didn't particularly care for that picture of the horsefly with Beyonce. To be honest with you, I'm not a beehiver, but I can imagine the beehive would not be pleased. Even though. I don't know. I never got a chance to actually pull to see if Beyonce was like flattered to be named after a horsefly.
Good point.
The whole time I'm just thinking Pat Choe, but never, I digress. But anyway, but but yeah, see, I know that this particular scientist does have like this history of like naming people after fly, and yes, Beyonce is an icon. So is RuPaul, and I do love Drag Race, and I actually saw that dress that RuPaul had on an episode of Drag Race, because because like RuPaul, every time like when they're about to do like the stage events that RuPaul does her walk, and even sissies that walk according to RuPaul, and that particular dress was on, and I was just like, yes,
wow. See. Awesome. Now I truly don't know if the dress came first, then the bug. So that's good to know. And I'll preface this because for years I've identified RuPaul as she, her. So by all means, by corrective status, I did my research. RuPaul is indifferent to which gender specific pronoun is referred to him or they or her. They did state as, quote, you can call me he, you can call me she, you can call me Regis and Kathy Lee. I don't care. Just as long as you call me me. I hope I did that right.
You did.
I have to say, Jena, I'm pretty sure that the bag came years and millennial before the dress, but I think we get the point.
Gotcha.
Yeah. No, yeah, just my 5 cents or whatever that phrase means. As I said in the beginning, I don't know about famous people, so sorry. I had no idea who RuPaul was until this specific moment. But I do enjoy learning about entomology, and arthropods, they are my favorite film because they are so diverse and so amazing. And yeah, Opaloma RuPaul, sadly, is so recent. It's not even that recent. It was identified in 2002, but it was mislabeled as a genus of Lecomia. It was only recently now rediscovered by this guy, Bright the Fly Guy Lazard. And I want to quote this guy, because he said, as a gay scientist, it took me a long time to feel comfortable in my own skin in a very traditional field of science, entomology. I think it's really important for the next generation of LGBTQ plus scientists to know that they are being represented in the workplace as we give the names of legends in the community to memorable species. And I think that this is amazing because I always talk about Alan Turing. He created the computer, these beautiful, magnificent, awesome tools that we use every day. And he killed himself in the 50s because he was homosexual. And because of that hideous, horrible, terrible, quotation mark, crime, he was forced to chemical castration.
Yeah.
Chemical castration. So I hope this phrase is okay, but the idea that it's okay to be gay, I've only seen it ironically, so I hope it's okay. But I think that this is a very important message that everybody needs to understand. Yes, there is nothing wrong with your own sexuality. It doesn't matter what type of sexuality you have. It's okay. So it's awesome. And I love that people are being represented. So yeah, of course, I wouldn't care if the RuPaul was named after the fly or any other famous person. That is not the important thing. The important thing is representation, and that all these LGBTQT+.
Okay, sound it out. Sound it out.
Yes,
we're learning.
Sorry, me and my heterosexuality. You know, I only talk about me, so I don't know other words. Yeah, sorry. So representation is very important, and I'm extremely happy that people are being represented and that we are all being represented, including Hispanic people, by the way. But yeah, talking about the fly, I think it's awesome that LGBTQT+ people are being represented. So awesome. Yeah. Congratulations, Bright Fly Guy Lazard. You are cool.
Yeah. I think to be accurate, he had discovered or named 13. I think this is the 13th one as far as fly species in Australia. And just as Cindy was saying, just as Mateo was saying, you know, the fact that is not only just giving accolades because he's gay. That's not the point. His overall point, and I'm sipping this from this article, is to make an effort for, as Mateo was saying, a positive representation in the workplace. Because Lazard, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I apologize, was trying to grow the interest and positivity of gay individuals that, you know, had interest in science and wanting to pursue that more, because yes, representation is a good thing and that's needed. And I know we have mutual friends, Bree Brainbug. She is brilliant in what she knows. And I'm sure others that are just as, you know, hands-on and into their science as well, that having that representation and feeling comfortable in that workplace to practice what your passion is great. And I think this article is beautiful. It has its comedy because it's RuPaul, but it's beautiful because it is RuPaul. And it's named after RuPaul. So, and the fly is, you know, it's beautiful too, just like RuPaul. But yeah, but I digress. But yes, go ahead, Cindy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to point out. Yes, representation is very important, as you said, but he didn't name this fly after RuPaul to bring attraction to him, but to bring attention to everyone else. And right. I think that's the beauty of it.
Totally agree.
Oh, no, absolutely agree. You're right. Wow. This is a good show. A lot of interesting, touched on a lot of fascinating things. From Nicki to RuPaul, we got through it all. Ooh, that rhymed. Ooh, gosh,
feels
that
good.
Rhymed. That felt good saying that. I got into myself a little bit. I'm sorry. By all means, people, if you also like the show, please leave your comments. Continue to please email us. Please email us. Please email us. Okay, I said that enough. Please send us your comments, what you liked or disliked about the show. We'd love to hear your interests. So please, by all means, email your thoughts, give us some feedback, tell us what you like and don't like at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. We are a part of many different fan social media outlets, I should say. And you can find us on the nonprofits, most of the nonprofits hosts at the Atheist Community of Discord. I said that right. ACD Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord. And you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/nonprofits live. And of course, continue to support us. And by all means, if you can, please support this show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/thenonprofits. And if you find yourself shopping on Amazon, please go ahead and support the Atheist Community of Austin by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the Atheist Community of Austin to be the beneficiary. So be sure to utilize that link that we have in the description for the ACA. We so appreciate it. I want to thank Mateo. I want to thank Cynthia. And most of all, I want to thank Cindy Plaza for joining us this afternoon, this Sunday. Please, by all means, Cindy, come back. We need more hosts. We need more minds. We need more different minds. This is what makes the nonprofit so great and enjoyable. And I'm sure you viewers do agree. But until next time, we will see you all next week.
Watch The Atheist Experience live Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTAXP and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callaxp.